Day 51 of the Iran war. How is it that with President Trump having devastated the Iranian military, they're still able to control the Strait of Hormuz, despite President Trump's claim that it's America with a blockade that's doing so, despite the fact that the Strait of Hormuz was actually open because of the blockade, the Iranians have now closed it. There are two key issues that are causing Iran to do this, one of which is the minefield that's laid here. Not entirely sure how many mines are there. There may be none at all. Professionally, there could be up to 12 there. All that does is it pushes the flow of traffic up to the north past Larak Island and therefore gives the Iranians much more control over the minefield. How many mines has Iran got? Up to 6,000, but as I said, it's just the threat of mines there that's causing the issue. What sort of mines have the Iranians got? Well, there's a selection that they have in their stockpiles, up to 6,000 of these. They won't be using floating mines because they'd be as much of a threat to all traffic, including the Iranian traffic. But they have some moored mines and also seabed mines. Each of those can be operated off an acoustic fuse or a magnetic fuse. They also have some limpet mines that can be attached to the sides of the vessels here by special forces and the like. Now, these mines will be relatively easily cleared by minesweepers. The Americans have some very potent capability there, but as soon as those minesweepers get anywhere close to the minefield, they're obviously in range of the Iranians. And that really triggers the second line of defence for the Iranians. They have been preparing for this for many decades. They have a selection of drones, missiles, anti-ship missiles particularly, and by forcing the traffic up further to the Iranian coastline, it makes it easier for them to use these weapons. Now, for the last 24 hours, the Iranians have actually been imposing their will on the Straits. They've threatened 3 ships. There's 2 LPG carriers, liquid propane gas, that tried to make their way through and have been turned back. And the actual attacks by the Iranians on 3 vessels probably weren't trying to sink them, probably just trying to threaten them. Now, although the United States claims to have sunk 150 of Iran's warships, what Iran is actually reverting to using is their Mosquito fleet. This is their fleet of very small speedboats. You see a couple of them here. We'll see more of them a little bit. But these are armed with machine guns, rocket-propelled grenades, can even control other drones, and there are some smaller versions of them that can be packed full. And as you can see here, they can operate in a swarm. They're quite difficult to target, they're quite evasive. Individually, they're not much of a threat, particularly to American shipping, but collectively, they can combat American technology and quality with quantity. So let's look at the US blockade then, because it's completely different. It's much more conventional use of military power. First of all, it's not actually on the Strait of Hormuz. It's actually at the far end of the Persian Gulf, out in the open sea. And what the Americans are doing is they're using satellite technology to track the vessels as they leave Iranian ports. If the Iranian ships continue, then they are using radio to threaten them. And then subsequently, if that's not working, they're using fighter aircraft to buzz them. Now, those fighter aircraft might be based on the Abraham Lincoln shown here, or they might be land-based. If that's not working, what the Americans will then do is use their destroyers to go in, very visible sign of a threat for any of the tankers or traffic moving. And if these don't work, they've got helicopters that can land on the deck and potentially board or seize the vessels, all of which is the focus on Iranian ships leaving the Iranian ports. The challenge there is many of those are moving Chinese goods. There's an arms for oil deal between China and Iran. Just imagine the friction, the potential escalation if an American warship starts to assault a Chinese ship. But time is the real issue here. The ceasefire is due to end on Tuesday evening. At the moment, the Straits of Hormuz is still closed. Time available to find a peace deal is fast running out.